Today we are playing a little bit of alternate reality and discussing if Justin Herbert could have brought the franchise their first Super Bowl if he had been the quarterback of the 2006 Chargers team.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer. We've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen. We appreciate the everydayers out there. And to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, the 2006 Chargers team sported 5 first-team All-Pro representatives, and my goodness, were they fantastic. A tier wants to know, if Justin Herbert was the quarterback, would they have won the Super Bowl that year? That's going to be an interesting conversation, and we're also going to tell you why the Chargers will not be trading for Tee Higgins, and we get to hear from linebackers coach NaVorro Bowman.
Yeah, it was great hearing from him for the first time. One of the moves that I loved as far as the additions to this coaching staff, because NaVorro Bowman was such an easy guy to like during his time playing for Jim Harbaugh in the league. But it starts with a really, really tough one. David, it's always hard when you have, the Chargers probably having their best 2 quarterbacks in franchise history back-to-back. No disrespect to Dan Fouts, but, Justin Herbert, to me, the most talented quarterback in Chargers history, hands down. Yeah. Phillip Rivers is the best Chargers quarterback in their history, in my opinion. But a tier is going to make us have a tough conversation today on today's Chargers buy or sell, getting into the biggest storylines and overreactions. Let's see what he has.
David, my baby, this is a tier buy or sell question. The Chargers would win the Super Bowl in 2006 LT MVP season with Justin Herbert as the QB. I believe they will. I'm buying. What says you? Let me hear you, please. Love you. Thank you.
Man, this is tough. And I think the only kind of thing that we have to preface here is I'm guessing that we're really talking about the playoffs. The Chargers went 14-2 in the regular season, and this is the year. We brought it up on BetterHelp ads. We brought it up wherever, anytime we're talking about traumatic Chargers moments, the Marlon McRee fumble that cost the Chargers at least a trip to the AFC Championship game. And let's also put this into the context. We're talking about this version of Justin Herbert and that version of Phillip Rivers. David, if Justin Herbert is playing on that team during that playoff run in a game they should have won anyways, do they win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so I want to preface this by saying I absolutely love Phillip Rivers, and this is by no means any slight or disrespect to Phillip Rivers, because he was truly phenomenal and honestly the quarterback of the majority of my fandom for the Chargers. But Justin Herbert, the current version of Justin Herbert, his movement skills, his evasion skills, his pocket presence, his ability to escape and extend plays on third downs are just simply things that Phillip Rivers was never able to do. And looking back at that playoff game against the Patriots, there were several instances, especially on third downs, where the rush really just converged on Phillip before Phillip was able to move or get around or be able to escape. And Justin Herbert's able to do all those things. So for me, I'm gonna say I'm gonna buy it. I do believe that Justin Herbert would have been able to lead that team to a Super Bowl because of his ability to escape, extend plays, use that rocket arm and accuracy to be able to hit some absolutely incredible weapons. We're talking about LT, who was an MVP, a first-team All-Pro, of course, with Michael Turner, Vincent Jackson, Eric Parker, Keenan McCardell, and a first-team All-Pro version of Antonio Gates, which, is just absolutely incredible. Not to mention an offensive line that was probably one of the best in franchise history. So with all of that being said, I do believe that this current version of Justin Herbert would have got that done.
Yeah, and not just make it to a Super Bowl, right? Win a Super Bowl, which is 2 different things. But yes. I think the hard thing, too, and the part you have to remember is the Chargers still would have had to make it through the Indianapolis Colts, who ended up winning it all that year, the team that beat the Patriots the next week after the Chargers lost. I think the other part that's important to remember is Phillip Rivers should have at least gotten to the AFC Championship game, right? We're talking about Marlon McRee fumbling after the game was sealed. Phillip Rivers and company leading the team to a field goal chance to tie the game, and Nate Kading missing it at the end of that game when you lose 24-21. So many bad memories there. This is the other important part of this. That was Phillip Rivers' first season as a starter.
Yeah.
And they didn't lose the game because of Phillip Rivers, but he didn't play great. No touchdowns, interception, about 50% completion percentage. It wasn't a good game by his standards, but he was also a rookie. We're talking about a dude who won his first game, I think, attempting 8 passes.
Yeah.
So I think this version of Justin Herbert could have gotten it done. I would buy it as well. Even though I think, he could have gotten it done. What happens in the playoffs, you just never know. Obviously, that game, a great example of how weird things always happen. And Bill Belichick has really made Justin Herbert struggle in every game that he's played against him. So I do think that Justin Herbert, with that good of a supporting cast, maybe the most talented Chargers team that we've ever seen, could have done it. I also think that later versions of Phillip Rivers, when he wasn't in his first season, could have done it. I think that's more what it is.
I
Like,
agree
if you're
with
talking
that.
about giving Justin Herbert a Hall of Fame tight end, Vincent Jackson, a Hall of Fame running back, a great offensive line and that supporting cast, a really good defense, he could win a Super Bowl. I'd say the same thing this year if they had all of those guys. I think that, unfortunately for Phillip Rivers, when he got older, when he matured, when he became one of the best quarterbacks in the league, he didn't have these things around him.
Yeah, that's true.
LT was a little past his prime, right?
Yeah.
They never really were able to rebuild that core. Also, rest in peace to A.J. Smith, the guy that put together that team, the guy that gave us the most dominant run of Chargers football that we've had in our lifetime. Obviously had his flaws and, things behind the scenes, but you can't argue with the product that he put on the field in those years.
Agreed.
It's tough. I love Phillip Rivers. Like I said, I think he's the best quarterback in Chargers history. I think Justin Herbert's the most talented, and he's 0-1 in the playoffs and has struggled against the Patriots, but he's never had a team that's as loaded as that team, as well balanced as that team, and not needing him. Like, the Chargers didn't need Phillip Rivers to be great that season. He wasn't good in that game. They didn't need him to be great. They needed him to be good. Justin Herbert could have been good in that game. Justin Herbert could have given them a chance against the Indianapolis Colts, and I think he would have beat the Bears that season, that same team that Colts beat. But a great question. I think that Justin Herbert still has a ways to go as far as his overall kind of what his legend will be, what his kind of whole story is going to look like at the end. He still has to get there. He has a ways to go before he catches up with Phillip Rivers. But
Agreed.
he has all the goods to do it, and we'll see if they can put that kind of team around him with this new regime. But let's get this next buy or sell here from Alex Boltup, who says, buy or sell, or the highest a Greg Roman team has ever been in regards to a total passing yards is 13th best. Buy or sell the Chargers passing offense is better than 13th best in 2024. What are you doing?
Yeah, so I think when you consider the quarterbacks that Greg Roman had at his disposal as an offensive coordinator, it's Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick with the 49ers, Tyrod Taylor with the Bills, and Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, who has never thrown for more than 3,678 yards. He has Justin Herbert now, and Justin Herbert has thrown for over 5,000 yards and also thrown for over 4,000 yards a couple of times. So Justin Herbert is by far the most talented thrower of the football that Greg Roman has ever had as an offensive coordinator. So I am going to buy that they are going to be better than 13th best in passing. I think he's going to be much more efficient. He might not have the touchdown scores that he would have had in previous seasons, but I do feel like he's going to have some good yardage totals, and I do feel like efficiency-wise, he's definitely going to get there, so I'm going to buy it.
I think the funny thing here is the Chargers were exactly 13th in passing yards last year, and they were missing Justin Herbert for almost 5 games.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to have 5 games the amount of less passing attempts than he had in 2023, which means I think that he'll definitely get there. I think they will be a top 10 passing attack in the league, even if they're one of the better running teams. So 13th, I think, is very attainable. I think, obviously, a more balanced offense also should lead to more sustained drives, more opportunities, more even potential for touchdowns if you're getting down there more often.
Yeah.
If you're not having to go 3 and out and being just such a boom or bust offense, if Justin Herbert can't bail you out, nothing is going to happen type of game, because that's what it was. But yeah, no Roman QB has ever hit 4,000 yards, right? And you probably need him to do that to get into the top 13. But at the same time, even that 3,600 yard season you're talking about, Lamar Jackson, that came last year with Todd Monken. He hit 3,000 barely 1 year under Greg Roman. But Justin Herbert's also not going to be running the ball like Lamar Jackson was. So I'd be surprised if the Chargers didn't have a top 13 passing attack this year, even though it's only happened once under Greg Roman. That was with someone that wasn't as good of a passer as Justin Herbert is. But we have more great buy or sells to get into, including one ESPN analyst thinking that the Chargers would be a perfect fit for Tee Higgins, and why we don't think that's going to happen, and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Today's episode, though, is sponsored by Yahoo Finance. Let's get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising cost of inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and your financial freedom, right? With Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools that you need in order to help reach that financial freedom. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data that you need in one place, and they are the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycles, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including a 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors. It's how Yahoo Finance ensures that you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. So for comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination. That's yahoofinance.com, yahoofinance.com. All right, David, we have some more great buy or sells to get into. Thank you to everyone who hit us up at Locked On LAC. Thank you to those who called into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. We appreciate the everydayers out there, and we love getting you guys involved with the show and knowing what you want to talk about, including this buy or sell we have here from Ron Parker. I know that Chargers Hack had a very similar one because I know this is something that was floating around ESPN. Ron Parker says, your show is great, guys. Buy or sell the Chargers seriously looking into trading for Tee Higgins. Seeing some articles that it's a possibility. And what that's referring to is an article about from Matt Bowen from ESPN where he was talking about free agent destinations, really, but then had one trade destination he thought made a lot of sense, and it was for Tee Higgins to end up with the Chargers. And he said he would immediately upgrade the Chargers offense as a 3-level target for quarterback Justin Herbert. With a pass game that will be heavily schemed, including play-action elements under new coach Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers create both isolation matchups and open voids for Higgins to produce. So, David, my thing is less about this being a good fit. I mean, yeah, I think the Chargers would be better if they had Tee Higgins, obviously. Sure. But I'm selling that it's a real possibility that the Chargers would make this move.
Yeah, I'm selling it as well. I think if this was brought to the table before the Chargers signed DJ Chark, maybe that would have been a more realistic situation here. But also, we have to consider Tee Higgins is coming off of career lows in receptions, targets, yards, and games played. And, you know, he's going to be wanting probably a top of the market deal, right? So it's not even just, hey, you have to go trade for him, but this is more of a trade and sign contract type of package deal. And I just think that after what the Chargers have done in the draft, what they've done in free agency to address the wide receiver position, I don't think the Chargers are in the market to add another wide receiver.
I would disagree with you on a couple points, just as far as like, I'm not going to ding him for having his worst yardage and touchdowns, thing like that, because it's like, obviously that's because he played the least amount of games that he's ever played in the season, right? Because he missed 5 games last year and he had missed 5 games total over his first 3 seasons, where he put up 3,000 plus yards in the first 3 years and also had 19 touchdowns, you know, averaging over 6 touchdowns per season. Those were all good. There was also some questions last year about, was he trying to really play through stuff because he knew he still had to get paid? That's obviously a little bit concerning. You never know how much of that is just leveraging by the team, putting out the information they want to help them get a deal done or to lower what he thinks his perceived value is. There's so many things kind of floating around that. I don't think DJ Chark also would stop the Chargers from bringing in someone like that. They're on 2 totally different levels, and, you know, they're paying DJ Chark nowhere near what they would have to pay this dude, which, to your point, is probably around $25+ million. I don't think the Chargers are going to spend draft assets and spend the money it would take to bring him in. Like, I don't think that's, you know, has anything to do with Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. I just think that for the Chargers and how they're kind of building this team and where they're prioritizing their resources, I just don't think they're going to spend draft picks, which obviously Joe Ortiz loves, even though he's not afraid. I'm not going to rule anything out with him because he's not afraid to make a big move if he thinks one will, you know, really help this team. And I think he would help, you know, be the wide receiver one that you're missing right now. I think he has that potential. I mean, at the same time, spending the draft assets, also paying him $25+ million, I just don't think it's a realistic possibility, even if, you know, what Matt Bowen is saying is true, that he would be a good fit if it happened. So let's get to this next buy or sell here from WB, who says, Brenden Rice plays meaningful snaps this year in 2024. David, are you buying or selling that? This is an interesting one.
It is interesting. It really is, because there's going to be a fierce battle in that wide receiver room. I mean, there is a ton of guys. I think there's 11 guys that are vying for probably 6 or 7 spots realistically.
Yeah, and
So-
8 of those guys are either here last year or brought in through the draft or in free agency with DJ Chark. You know?
Right. So, but with that being said, I am going to buy it. And the reason why is I believe that Brenden Rice has a chip on his shoulder after he felt disrespected by being picked in the 7th round in the draft, right? I mean, all those teams that overlooked him and let him go. I think he's going to work his butt off, and I think he's going to earn a spot in this Chargers wide receiver room, and I do expect him to make some plays this year.
It's great. I mean, I think the hard thing is, like, he has to make the team first, and I'm not even sure that's a total given. So, I mean, if we're saying, hey, we're assuming that he gets, makes the team, we're assuming that meaningful snaps means meaningful snaps on offense and not as a special teams player or something like that, because I could see all those things happening. I would buy that he could have meaningful snaps depending on what your definition of that is, but I would also be surprised if he was a top 3 wide receiver on this team.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that.
But that's what I mean. If it's meaningful snaps, if you're making your way into the rotation, you're a top 3 receiver, right? I mean, that's just basically what it is. If he's wide receiver 4, maybe that's semantics, but like I don't see him, like, maybe he can grow into that. And I'm not going to put that past him. And if I had to put my money on it, I would say he would make the team right now. But I think I have to see what he does in training camp. I have to see what he looks like out there compared to other NFL players. I have to see what he's able to do in the preseason when, things will matter for him a lot more before I'm going to slap any labels about what his role is going to be in 2024. I do think he brings some great things to the table. Bigger body receiver who's able to block, able to high point the football. But you have DJ Chark, you have Joshua Palmer, you have Ladd McConkey. I expect all 3 of those guys to have roles, and that's not even talking about their first-round pick, Quentin Johnston, last year. So where does Brenden Rice fit into that equation? Injuries can happen, other things could happen. That could change that picture a little bit, but as we see it right now, it's just probably too soon to tell. So let's get to Edgar S. here, who says, buy or sell, at least 2 or more undrafted free agents will be on the starting roster by the start of the season. So, David, that opening day, that initial 53-man roster is going to be very interesting with this new regime and kind of seeing what they value and seeing how many of the people from the old guard find themselves on the outside looking in. And I do think there is potential for some undrafted free agents to make this team. Are you buying or selling that at least 2 of them will do it?
Yeah, that's a really, really tough situation there.
2's probably the number, right? Like 2's probably the number that makes it hard. If you said 1, it'd be easy buy, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you look at this roster and you look at the holes that are on this roster, there's 2 positions to me that come to mind. Offensive line, backup offensive line, and the second one being safety. That last safety spot. I think those are the 2 spots where you could see, conceivably, undrafted free agents make this roster if they're able to beat out one of the incumbents that were on the roster from last year. So I'm going to buy it, actually. I do feel like there's opportunity there for them to earn a spot realistically. And I mean, I'm sure that's, was part of the calculus when they decided to sign with the Chargers.
I'll sell that it's at least 2. I would buy at least 1. I'll sell it at least 2. Could 2 make it? Sure. But I do think we'll have to kind of see how it plays out. I would agree 100% with the positions that you picked out. Offensive guard, offensive center, both of those spots are, there's a lot of question marks behind who the starters are right now. Maybe tight end. I think it depends on how they feel about, like after Donald Parham, and even Donald Parham's kind of a question mark who hasn't been able to practice at the start of these OTAs, which we didn't get to talk about.
If we add practice squad to the mix, I would definitely say.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, the practice squad is going to be primarily made up of undrafted free agents, right? So you'd have to put the number a lot higher on that. But I think about tight end, someone like Zach Hines that we watch where it's like, that guy feels like could fit. If the Chargers, don't really see Donald Parham for a fit with this team moving forward, maybe that's a spot. Or even, if they want to keep 4 tight ends, and then I give definitely a chance to these undrafted free agents going up against Stone Smart for sure. So,
oh yeah, no doubt.
I would agree with all those positions. I would buy at least 1 undrafted free agent will make this roster this year, but it'll be really interesting because the Chargers could decide to go with a lot of even undrafted guys that they've brought in over some guys that were valued by the previous regime, and we're just going to have to wait to find out, but it's going to be really, really interesting. The good news is we still have great stuff to get into, including new linebacker coach NaVorro Bowman talking for the first time at a press conference, and also talking about why he thinks Daiyan Henley basically has the starting spot to lose, and much more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. All right, David, well, let's get into NaVorro Bowman speaking with the media for the first time, because he said some really good stuff that we didn't get to talk about yesterday, and I wanted to make sure we didn't get too far along without talking about some of the comments that he had. He's a new coach too, so you might accidentally say some things that some other, veteran coaches might not, and I think he did. Not in a bad way or anything, but I do think it was very interesting, his thoughts on Daiyan Henley, his thoughts on Junior Colson, and also we have to talk about Denzel Perryman comparing his coach to one of the GOATs. It just wasn't a coach. It wasn't a coach that's a GOAT. It just, a GOAT. Will Ferrell. So we have to talk about that. But I want to start with the Daiyan Henley part of it, because I thought it was really interesting what NaVorro Bowman had to say. His athletic ability, man, he's well put together. We're all new seeing him. It's exciting just to see the things in the way that he is, that he can move around. He's doing a great job thus far. He was here, so you get the first shot to own this position. Just don't give it up, man. It's early right now, but the level of Group 1, Group 2, anybody can go out right now and play. So obviously I want to stick with that one part right there, David, because not even really reading between the tea leaves here, reading between the lines. That's him saying, hey, he has the starting job and it's his to lose if he can play well enough for it.
It certainly seems that way. I mean, that just reading in between the lines, that's what it sounds like. And I think if you watched Daiyan Henley on the football field, you understand the excitement, right? You understand why, he would be a guy that you would want on the football field. This is a guy who can run sideline to sideline, feels like he has good instincts in coverage. He's a strong tackler. I mean, the one time last year where he got, some consistent playing time, he racked up like 5 or 6 tackles in a very, very short period of time. So Daiyan Henley to me is, honestly a guy who has that great athletic profile that I feel like would be, somebody who could match up well partnering with a Denzel Perryman or a Junior Colson, if that's going to be the combination. Daiyan Henley to me is a guy that didn't get enough opportunities last year, and I hope he gets a lot more opportunities this year.
I mean, I just hope that NaVorro Bowman knows when his birthday is so that he can wish him a happy birthday on time. We don't have any drama coming from that.
Oh, God.
I mean, it is a fresh start for Daiyan Henley. It didn't feel like him and Brandon Staley clicked. It felt like there was many times, especially towards the end of a season that was really slipping away from the Chargers, where they could have used that time to get him on the field and give him some very valuable experience. And he did at the end, and then got in, and then got hurt, and we didn't really get to see that much. That was the tough thing, is because the times that we saw, it's so hard, because when he was out there, he was really good.
He was good.
It just, you sound crazy talking about it, because you're talking about literally one of the smallest sample sizes you could get. We're talking about like 50 defensive snaps that he had last year. So like, it's such a small sample size that you can't put too much into it. You don't want to let your pre-draft priors affect your opinion of him too much. But I think the dude can play. And I think when you're talking about him versus Denzel Perryman and Junior Colson, I think he does fit well with both of those guys. And I do think that him saying this is exactly kind of what we hoped it would be, because it's like, also, hey, Nick Niemann was here last year. We're not saying it about Nick Niemann. He didn't get asked about Nick Niemann, but Nick Niemann's not getting a starting job to lose like Daiyan Henley is. They think he has the ability. He has a chance to be a very good player, but I mean, it also is saying, hey, if you don't take this by the horns, you're going to lose it. So you have the great chance. You have the first chance, but you better do the most of it. And another great thing that, NaVorro Bowman said was just like, hey, it also, you can't make the team right now in shirts and shorts, right? So you just do what you got to do right now. You don't have to go too hard to try to make it, but you have to be able to, pick up this defense and make the right calls and show that you're not going to be a hindrance to this new defense and a fresh start, but also a new defense to learn from Daiyan Henley. So he also had some interesting words about Junior Colson, a couple different things, but I liked when he said, just seeing how he moves from sideline to sideline, seeing him have the attention of the other 10 guys on the field. That's a Mike backer. I just saw a leader. That's what you want on a defense. He also said just about like, hey, he already knows the defense really well. What is this part about from him? And NaVorro Bowman said this: just teach them how to be a pro. Teach him certain things that he can do in certain defensive calls. When you can kind of take a gamble here and there, and just off the field, understanding your body has to last you 17 weeks. So I thought that was very good insight to, hey, Junior Colson obviously up to speed on the playbook, but there's some other things I can teach him just about being a professional NFL player.
That's what I absolutely love about having NaVorro Bowman as the linebackers coach, because this is a guy who has been there and done that in the league and played at an extremely high level. Can really kind of teach these young players what it takes, right? How to take care of your body, how to eat, how to stretch, how to make sure that you're able to withstand the rigors of a very violent, very long NFL season. So, I mean, we all know that Junior Colson understands this defense, knows exactly where he's supposed to be, knows where everyone else around him is supposed to be. But being able to get that guy that's able to get in his ear, that's been there and done that, and has been able to really excel at that, I think that is invaluable for a young linebacker that's just starting his journey in the NFL.
Yeah, he also said that, kind of reiterated what we've heard from coaches past that said a little early for him to have the green dot. So maybe they are pretty serious about that. And it was also interesting saying, hey, you were in the meetings, and then sometimes NaVorro Bowman will just be going. And then, then you have Junior Colson going like, hey, coach is talking really fast, but this is basically what he's trying to say. Like, I know this defense. So he's kind of helped be the translator for what Jesse Minter's defense is. And he also just said, like, hey, he hasn't had to take on a block from an NFL guard or an NFL tackle or tackle an NFL running back. So there are still parts that he has to, transition and evolve into what it takes to play at this level, which is why a lot of linebackers, stop early on. So he can only do what he can do right now. He's telling them, hey, don't get yourself hurt. And obviously he had to leave the first practice. We don't know that's because he was trying too hard or anything. But I'll never forget, even when I was playing football, like I remember getting brought up as a freshman and it was the playoffs, and they brought up some other freshmen too, just kind of like get the ropes of everything.
Sure.
And we were in the linebacker group, and the first drill we did, one of the freshman linebackers just went way too hard against one of the starting linebackers and hurt the dude. And he ended up being hurt for the playoff game. But it's one of those things. It's like, you want to play hard and practice hard and do all those things, but remember you're playing against your teammates.
Right. Not too much too soon, right?
Don't be and he basically said it, don't be the practice hero. Don't be the guy that's just going too hard at practice. So it's all part of it, but still make sure you're on your P's and Q's as well. But we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about what Denzel Perryman had to say in his trip to the podium. Great to see that he's still the fun-loving dude that we remember. I love Denzel Perryman, the person, and, the player. I always, liked his mentality and his physicality and all those things. But Denzel Perryman just is a different type of dude. And when he was asked about what he thought about his coach, he had a very, very interesting answer, I would say.
Man, I absolutely love Denzel Perryman. He said, my first impressions of Harbaugh, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but he reminds me of Will Ferrell. I don't know if it's the way that he speaks, his analogies and everything, but they really remind me of Will Ferrell. It's just funny to me. And then he says, nah, just Will Ferrell in general. Talladega Nights might get me in trouble. Step Brothers is a good one. I don't know, man. He just giving Will Ferrell vibes, which is absolutely hilarious. I love Denzel Perryman, man. He's always a guy that's going to speak his mind and really give those really great sound bites. But I mean, I can kind of see it,
yeah,
just
see it.
With the Harbaugh isms and the way he carries himself. But I would love to kind of listen to Coach Harbaugh when he doesn't have all the cameras in front of him and all the mics in front of him, where he has to be a little bit more buttoned up. I really do feel like Coach Harbaugh is a really, really funny dude. I'd love to be in those type of situations to kind of see a little more off the cuff version of Coach Harbaugh.
I think the thing about Jim Harbaugh is I don't know if he's trying to be funny. Like, I think he just comes off as funny. And I think when the cameras are off, that's the one kind of difference about Jim Harbaugh is he's just still Jim Harbaugh. Like, I don't think that dude changes depending on what room he's in, what group he's around, if he's in front of his players or not. Like, Jim Harbaugh is always Jim Harbaugh. And I think he does have a little bit of Will Ferrell in him. And I think it's just kind of the belief that he has when he says crazy things, and he can just say it with like kind of a deadpan face and like not think it's that crazy when everyone else is like, you're such a weirdo. But like, obviously you believe in it. So
it's not
then,
just
like,
a day. It's 2 days.
Yeah, it's easy to follow. There's so many Harbaughisms and stuff like that. I mean, I think that, credit to Daniel Popper for following up with the hard-hitting questions like, hey, which Will Ferrell is he? Old school or Step Brothers, or like you said, Talladega Nights. I don't know if he's Ricky Bobby. I think he might be more like, Will Ferrell from Step Brothers if I had to pick one. But I'm great movies, all of them. I'm a big Will Ferrell guy. So
same.
I definitely can see it. And it's really funny that Denzel Perryman, having no relationship with Jim Harbaugh before this year, had the, guts to be like, he kind of reminds me of Will Ferrell. And I'm sure he means it.
But also
in the
said he
best way.
loves Coach Harbaugh and has tremendous respect for him.
He does
loves
say,
the
I
direction.
love him. Yeah. But he also loves the lines and the gimmicks. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you guys are back here tomorrow. We didn't get as much coverage of OTAs as we hoped we would get this week, and closed off to the public and the media. So tomorrow we'll be getting into our Chargers mailbag, which means hit us up at Locked On LAC when we put a post down to get your question on the show, or call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. You can also hit up David in his DMs at DroTalkSD on Twitter. You can hit me up at Dan Talk Sports. And also, we will be getting into our game-by-game schedule predictions on Friday, all 17 games, what we think the final record will be at this point of the offseason, obviously, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm excited to get to that on Friday's show as well. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page as well, where we post every show, so you can be the everydayer to the only daily Chargers podcast around. But thank you guys so much for checking out today's show. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.